Greetings, everybody. Oh, more people. Just a sec. Greetings, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us at Space Cowboy Books Online. This is night one of season 5 of Flash Science Fiction Night. And tonight we are going to have stories from Jenna Hanchey, A.D. Sway, and Dr. Felix Alexander. So thank you so much for being here. First up, we're going to have Jenna Hanchey. Jenna has been called a badass fairy. She attempts to live up to the title. Her fiction has been shortlisted for the British Science Fiction Association Awards and can be found in Nature, the Sunday Morning Transport, and Small Wonders, among other venues. She co-hosts the podcasts Griots and Galaxies, and recently joined the team at Just Keep Writing, additionally narrating stories for Strange Horizons and Space Cowboys Simultaneous Times. I'm going to hand it over to Jenna to read Break, O Time, which first appeared in Medusa Tales.
Hi, everyone. This is Break, O Time. Break, O waves on the shores of Lake Michigan. Break, O heart, and let the pieces sparkle like scales as they fall to the unknown depths. Break, O time, that she may live again. Break, break, break. I was hauntingly lucky to bear witness as the mermaid of Lake Michigan died. She'd done her best to prepare me for the moment when I'd call my hoarse approximation of her name to no response, but not for the possibility I might be there, to watch, powerless, as she transformed, reclaimed by the watery depths. Looking back, I can see the beauty of it. It replays in slow motion in my mind, perhaps because I felt frozen at the time. Unable to move, unable to breathe, unable to stop what was occurring before me. A body suddenly replaced with a million glinting stars. My gaze would not let go of the water as it flowed into the space where she had just been. But water does not wait for you to let it go. It shifted and churned under my increasingly confused searching until her sparkling remnants were lost to the mysteries of the lake. I could see scales glinting underneath the waves as they sank into the depths, others tossed high into the air and backward, away from the shore. All of them, it seemed, moved further and further away from me. Heavy seconds fell like stones before I allowed myself to realize that the pieces of her could never be reassembled. She would never be put back together again. The mermaid of Lake Michigan was gone, and with her, my heart and soul. I could do nothing but watch the waves lap against the gentle curve of the shore. Break, O waves. I didn't know what I was accepting when she gave me her first soul stone. We couldn't speak to one another at the time. Part of me thought she was a hallucination, this iridescent green creature sitting placidly on the unrecognizable shoreline. I crawled up the dune toward her on all fours, exhausted from escaping the riptide that had yanked me from knee-deep water off Silver Beach, from slowly slogging my way diagonally back toward land. Her emerald tail had acted as a beacon, directing me to safety. She smiled, toothless and strange, and leaned down with an open palm. In it glinted a small, round jasper. I reached up to take it, looking from the rock into her depthless black eyes, and held the stone over my heart in thanks. I felt a jolt as the jasper failed to stop at the boundary of my skin, entering and hardening a part of my aorta. For a moment, the blood crashed in my heart like waves upon a shore. Then it stilled. Suddenly light-hearted and light-headed, I collapsed onto her lap. She ran her hand through my hair, wordlessly reassuring. Some stray hairs caught on her lightly webbed fingers, and she gurgled in surprise, or perhaps delight. I nodded assent when she looked at me with a question in her eyes. She placed the loose hairs in her mouth. A gift for a gift. I lay my fingers over my chest, feeling the confident stone where flimsy flesh had been. Break, O heart. I understood more about soul stones and the connections they wrought by the time I removed my left ventricle and traded it for a piece of her granite, smoothed like glass and flecked with gold. By then, she'd grown teeth of quartz and hair like a halo of bristly seaweed, evidence of my gifts and the bridge they built between her and humanity. Outside, I remained the same, but I could feel the newfound solidity of my soul. A little less human, a little more like her. She'd grabbed my hand more forcefully than usual that day. There will come a time I will not be here when you look for me. Her words crashed upon me, leaving me breathless. She was direct like that. She never opened with context or explanation, names or diminutives. Why? I'd responded, facing her and the conversation head on. She made me feel self-assured. With her, I could face anything. Because my body does not age like yours. It simply is, or is not. Right now, it is. Later, not. Now, peering ineffectually into the opaque waters upon which the setting sun danced, I wondered what it meant that I was there when it happened. When the lake reached out to reclaim her form, scatter her knowledge through its vast expanse. When it threw part of my soul beyond reach. I understood what happened objectively. People die, mermaids die. My friend died, and I wasn't ready to lose her. I didn't scream or bargain or beat my hands against the sand. I simply sat, staring at the way the receding waves seemed to draw mountains on the canvas of the shore, and gasped, gently, at each burst of liquid heat flowing in my suddenly sodden heart. Each rush of blood through my veins felt like a betrayal. I understood what had happened, but I couldn't fathom how I would survive. I threw a stone and watched it sink into the depths. Maybe it could find the rest of my soul down there, the pieces of my heart that I could no longer access without her. Maybe it could burst them open, find what they harbored inside. I wanted to break time itself like one breaks a geode and find that luminous place where I could believe the lines I repeated to myself. She is still a part of me, and now I am a part of Lake Michigan. The liquid loosening reached my eyes, and I finally cried. Break, O time. Break, O waves on the shores of Lake Michigan. Break, O heart, and let the pieces sparkle like scales as they fall to the depths. Break, O time, that I may already have learned how to live again. Break, break, break. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jenna. Next up, we have A.D. Sway. A.D. Sway is a Ukrainian-born, internationally raised speculative writer, a Nebula, Aurora, and Theodore Sturgeon Memorial Award finalist. She is the author of Dragonfly Gambit, wonderful book from last year, and more than 24 short stories. A failed academic and retired fencer, she spends her days wrangling her 2 dogs and tending to her myriads of tropical plants. I'm going to hand it over to AD to read Banquet of the Shooting Stars.
Hi, everyone. This is Banquet of the Shooting Stars, first published in Etheria magazine, issue 13, and coincidentally, the first story that I ever had reviewed. The bargain between a wisher and a shooting star sounds too good to be true. Nevertheless, the benevolent stars seem to want nothing in return. So in the dead of the summer night, Annette climbs the rooftop, limber and strong, despite her 11-year-old awkwardness. She scurries along the shingles and grabs the chimney into a one-armed hug. Below, drowned out by distance, a voice calls to her. Annette, you get right back here. No daughter of mine will be out this late, not while you live under my roof. Scolded again like a petulant child, Annette pouts, tightens her grip of the chimney. She'll show them good. No more curfew, no more rules, no more angry mothers to yell at her for staying out late and climbing rooftops all unladylike. It won't be long now. Handfuls of scattered diamonds hang against the heavy sky, poised to tumble earthward like ripe apricots. Then, when the velvet tapestry can't take the weight any longer, a star falls, and then another more. Annette shuts her eyes so tight her own falling stars erupt behind her eyelids. She whispers her wish. She whispers it again, with demand this time, once for every falling star she saw, just to be sure. Around her, the air cools. It buzzes with electricity. Tied to every molecule of oxygen, the static clings to her fingertips and to her hair strands. She's proper scared now. Annette peels one eye open to sudden darkness. Her other eye next. Yes, that was the problem, perhaps. But there is nothing ahead of her but pitch black, so vivid its cores to her touch. The roof is gone, only the chimney stands, now anchored into nothingness. The tighter Annette clings to the chimney, the more frightened she grows. When her fear nears its zenith, a bolt of white light shoots past her right shoulder. In rhythm with some invisible percussion, another flash of light flies through the black, now over her left shoulder. And then, flashing lights rain all around her in a storm of fire. A circle forms. To Annette's left and to her right, two curving arms reach out, each comprised of twinkling dots. They flicker out of sync to their own silent melt. Bewildered, Annette watches as each flickering light grows and morphs until it comes into possession of two arms and 2 feet and one head. A star. A childishly simplistic star. Annette is old enough to know that stars don't really look like that, but young enough to still appreciate this form. The stars gleam proudly, privy to their inside joke. The star closest to Annette's feet cranes its pointed head towards her. Welcome, it thinks, says, projects. Its crystalline voice rings inside the girl's head, yet the star has no mouth to speak of. The greetings echo between the others. Their voices rise like a frozen echo. Thanks, Annette says. She should be polite, even when speaking to inanimate objects. Her mother taught her so. The stars shimmer their reply. The air fills with the ringing of bells. Drink with us, the stars chime. Stay with us, the stars say. Make a wish, why don't you? When the drinks stop pouring, the star closest to her looks up with no eyes, and the wish will be yours. The star lets out a mischievous giggle. All the other stars wait expectantly, their pointed heads politely tilted in attention. It would be rude to decline. Yes, it would be most rude, and there is a wish she has in mind. Well, okay, Annette says, and gives the stars a firm nod. All right, I'll drink with you. Out of the night comes a shallow bowl of the whitest china she has ever seen. An invisible decanter fills it with a sparkling drink of pure light. Drink, drink, the stars chant as Annette brings the bowl to her lips. The drink is harsh and bitter, and she takes a full gulp of it with a scrunch of her nose. She passes the bowl to the star on her left, places it into the comically outstretched arms. The bowl passes from star to star, sip after sip, again and again. When the bowl makes it back into Annette's hands, it's still full. Drink, drink, the stars chant, and Annette takes another full gulp. Around and around the bowl is passed, never growing emptier. Drink, drink, the stars chant, relentless. Annette's thoughts grow sluggish. She stumbles across a memory of her house. Red brick, she thinks. No, maybe brown. The shingles on the roof were redone this past summer. No, 5 years ago. Annette blinks, and the bowl is in her hands again. She shared a room with a sister once. Or was it a brother? Who was it that brought her cut fruit in the sweltering midday? Where had she come from? Annette drinks from the bowl, and light trickles from her pointed chin, spills across the darkness at her feet. The drink is nectar now, and she relishes in every drop. Drink, drink, the chilling voices echo. When had her legs grown this long? Annette sips from the bowl. When had she gotten so tall? Annette passes the bowl to her left. When the bowl is passed into her hands again, it's empty. Is it done? Annette asks, and fails to recognize her own voice. Can I make my wish now? But the stars are gone, and the wish has already been granted. Annette wakes up in a room that isn't hers, in a season no longer summer, in a house that is neither brown brick nor red. She can't remember when her legs had grown this long. She can't remember when she gotten this tall. And she can't remember exactly when childhood ended. But she remembers a muggy summer night, and the bite of electricity, and the sweetness of drink, and the rush of anticipation, and then nothing at all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, AD. Next up, we have Dr. Felix Alexander. Dr. Felix Alexander is the J.K. and Doris Klein Librarian for Science Fiction and Fantasy at the University of California, Riverside, where he curates one of the world's largest collections of cataloged science fiction, and a queer Greek Cypriot scholar and writer of science fiction himself. His work has appeared in the magazine of fantasy and science fiction, The Dark, The Deadlands, Escape Pod, and Science Fiction Studies, among others. He will be reading Nancy Shreds the Clouds, which was first published by Flash Fiction Online.
Thank you so much for that intro, and thanks everyone for being here tonight. So this is Nancy Shreds the Clouds. Storm clouds gathered, as they always did, when Nancy fought. Jaundiced thunder carriers chaotic with rain, lowering and brutish cumulolimbi, spoiling for both combat and ceasefire. They stacked themselves now over Meadows Elementary as she lashed out at Fiona McCarthy. Nancy called their leader Crown because that's what he tried to be, Lord and Savior, bully, Sky King. He came with his retinue, wheedling clouds that made plates in the sky, sinister smears of stratocumuli, puffs that looked innocuous, yet were just as vicious as the bigger brutes. I hate you, Nancy McAleese, Fiona yelled, because there was nothing left to do, with a face flushed with blood, scrapes on elbows and knees, and smarting patches on her scalp where her hair had been pulled. Nancy had tried to be kind to her, offered to connect in VR for a multiplayer game, to paint her nails nylon pink. Fiona, in return, had sneered and called her names. The clouds had been silent about that, and how was that fair? Nancy, alone, was judged. So, she had taken justice into her own hands. Nancy's posse filmed this fight on their smartphones, and they sent her the video afterwards as, breathless with adrenaline and cruelty, they went to get boba tea. The clouds followed, rumbling across the sky. Nancy hid her anxiety behind loud laughter, open maw chomping on tapioca orbs. Only when she was home, running upstairs straight away, knowing she had only about an hour of peace, did she acknowledge the clouds that hung low enough to form a mist outside her window. Some people were gifted with a sensitivity to spirits, a sixth sense, serpentine shivers of insight that allowed them to move with ease through the world. Nancy's gift was to hear the clouds, and the bastards just wouldn't mind their own business. A vaguely equine face drifted beyond the glass, for all the world like a horse beheaded. You shouldn't be bad, it said, in the glutinous voice that all clouds had. Leave me alone, she replied, looking back to her phone. The front door slammed. Her parents were back, and, as always, her father had had a bad day, and her mother was in a shitty mood. Nancy was sent downstairs to watch a television set to high volume while they swore and swung at each other upstairs, an endless mystery of thuds and yelps and even more alarming silences that kept her listening, frozen in powerlessness, for the sounds to resume. Sounds meant her parents were still alive. Nancy glared out at the featureless sky. "Do you want to do anything about that?" she hissed. Upstairs, the crystalline cacophony of glass breaking. A cartoon duck hollered on the television, beak torn bloodlessly off and replaced with a slab of metal to comical sound effects. From the clouds, not a word. The clouds were an annoyance, a literal headache that plagued her with their admonitions whenever she did something they disagreed with. And as the years passed, she did a lot of things they disagreed with. But Nancy had another power. She went through life with the elixir clear understanding of its injustice and resolved to be entirely happy anyway. When she was good, she was alone. When she was kind and loving and sincere, her reward was nothing. Condescension, misogyny, being overlooked by clouds and people alike. There was an awful absence when the sky was silent. No thunder from above, no parental footfalls, no acknowledgement at all. Perversely, she missed it. So, she took pleasure from speaking down to baristas, jackknifing from holiness to rage and back again in boardrooms, on phone calls, online. And of course, then the clouds came to judge. Crown came to judge. In college, she chose to study subjects that would make her money, and everyone loved her. Strong, willful Nancy. Nancy who tells it like it is. She pushed people to their limit until she could insult them almost explicitly to their faces, propose all sorts of plans and strategies that would actively harm them and benefit her only, and still they loved her. To Nancy, that made perfect sense. Brown and his lackeys changed form over the years like clouds do, constituting and reconstituting, dropping from sky to the heavens, piss to troposphere to ocean, and back again. All that feeling in fleeting forms, horses, carrion birds, dream carousels that wheeled dramatically while she slapped her partner for the first time and then kept doing it until he left. Pressure falling around her head, then localized shame. And Nancy's rage grew because, unlike the little girls in the playground all those years ago, she could not fight the clouds. Until one day, she could. On her 60th birthday, Nancy Michalis ascended to the rooftop of Axiom Tower, an architectural insult to carbon neutral initiatives, as the factories behind it belched their own clouds up into the sky. Nancy's entire career had led to this. Now she had her own retinue, and not of cruel, cowardly, powerless girls. No. Now she had nitrogen, sulfur, dross particles of water flung upward, uncountable insults to her old nemesis. Crown came, the biggest he'd ever been, stretching from the horizon line to a dizzying height above her head. She smiled, holding a champagne flute up to him. Above her, spears of smog surged upwards almost to the sky's limit, higher and higher still, until, looking up at them, she felt the very smallness of the planet. The sight was infinitely more satisfying than kicking young children in a playground, than screaming at warring loved ones who would not ever stop, held together in a bond so toxic it had taken a lifetime for her to understand. Frown issued a syllable like thunder in her mind. Why? Looking up, eye wide in the sting of smoke, Nancy laughed in triumph as the factory's emissions made a jag of structure, looking, for all the world, like a diadem just for her, hundreds of miles up. And the diadem was its own answer. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was Phoenix Alexander with Nancy Shreds the Clouds. Before that, you heard A.D. Sway with Banquet of the Shooting Stars. And opening the show was Jenna Hanchey with Break O Time. Absolutely beautiful stories all. Thank you so much. Thank you to our audience for being here. And I've just dropped a link in the chat for our very next Flash Science Fiction Night, which is coming up on May 20th, which will be featuring stories from the pages of Ray Dawn Journal, with featured readers Aaron Rudell, Jordan Hirsch, and Emma Burnett. So be sure to join us for that. Have a wonderful night, everybody, and thank you for being here.